right. I think we can get started. For everyone that just joined us, just letting you know that you don't have to turn your cameras on. It's optional if you are welcome to. We're just doing a more informal meeting format instead of a webinar format, so we can have the option of seeing participants. The speakers will keep their cameras on so that you can see who they are. And we're just going to get started with this sort of info session today, hopefully keeping it under an hour so everyone can get back to their evenings. My name is Tricia Heuring, and I am a consultant for Forecast Public Art and one of the organizers behind the Joyful World Mural Park at the State Fair, which is something that I kind of co-designed along with Dudley and the Minnesota State Fair. So I will introduce the rest of the panelists that we're going to have with us today. Just introduce myself, Tricia Heuring. I use she, her pronouns. Dudley, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would. Thanks, Tricia. Hi, I'm Dudley Voigt, she, her. I work for the State Fair. I'm a seasonal employee, which means I don't have an office on the fairgrounds. But I am in my 11th year of working in the entertainment department. And in addition to Joyful World Mural Park, I also helped create the Arts Affair pop-up theater and dance program and get to support the giant sing-along, which is a public art installation created by an organization in Montreal called Tous les Jours. And it's really fun to work with artists one-on-one and bring it to the fair. So I'm excited to have another year of this process.
Juliette, do you want to just say hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name's Juliette Myers, she, her pronouns. I'm a muralist and mosaic artist and sculpture artist, and I make public art. And I have been in the Twin Cities making public art since 2015. And I was one of the muralists for the Joyful World Park last year.
And that leaves you, Noah.
Hey there, I'm Noah Lawrence Holder, they, them, and I was a muralist during the summer of 2022. I'm also an illustrator, animator, and I've been working in my field in the cities since 2017.
Amazing, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on the mural park information just so you understand how it all works. This experience is really artist centered, and the State Fair is very much invested in the artist experience. So just having full transparency around how it works and what you are potentially applying to is really important to us. We also want you to have as successful of an application as possible. So joining this info session is a really good opportunity to ask questions, get clarity on areas of the application that aren't clear or about just the opportunity itself. Dudley is monitoring the chat, so please feel free to add questions at any time, and she'll incorporate them into the answers, or we'll address them at the end when we have time for just a straight question and answer session. So the Mural Park is an official State Fair attraction. It's not like an outside project. This is the 4th year, and it is funded by the State Fair and the State Fair Foundation. Forecast is contracted by State Fair to contract the artists and organize the park. And Forecast Public Art is a national 501c3 arts nonprofit that works in the field of public art, providing education, workshops, and opportunities to public artists, as well as working with all different types of entities to commission public art and design public art master plans. And if you don't know Forecast Public Art that closely and you are a public artist, please do tap into their network because it's huge for opportunities. So I am an independent consultant. As I said, I don't work full-time for Forecast or for the State Fair, and my interest is in just being part of this experience and making sure that artists have a really positive experience at the fair. Dudley is a key contact, as she explained, for the State Fair Entertainment Department, and she runs Arts Affair and other State Fair arts partnerships. So we're sort of the team that works behind the scenes to make the mural park happen. And this is sort of how it comes to be. So the first mural park actually happened in 2021, and that was just after 2020, which we all know as the start of the pandemic. And so a lot of things had changed for the fair, a lot of things had changed for our world. And so the first theme really was about trying to understand what is this world that we're living in, and how can we live in a joyful place. So the prompt is really meant to be a broad framework for you to present an idea. So we want it to be an uplifting place. There's a lot of things around the theme that connect to the fair and the things that the fair stands for. But the idea is not necessarily to do like a state fair themed mural. So we're not looking for the state of Minnesota or cows or, you know, things like that can get into the mural park, but there's really like a lot of expansiveness, I think, in this theme for artists to be able to explore things that they're looking at in their practice currently as well. The other thing about this is that there is obviously the arts exhibition, the arts building and the competition, the prizes. There's a lot of opportunities for visual art to be shown at the fair. This is a mural showcase. And so knowing that murals have become a really big part of the Twin Cities in the last 5 years, but also just, you know, across years and years in neighborhoods, as part of movements, as part of different community representation, murals are a part of the state. And so that's why they're represented at the fair. A lot of times I get questions about whether or not people who have never painted a mural or if they could do another medium at this park. The answer is usually no. Those are things that you can apply to the fine arts competition for. This is strictly murals. So the main details is that each commission mural is about 8 by 8. It's wood and it's a 3-sided structure. Each artist is assigned to one side of the structure. So you have an 8 by 8 surface, 8 by 8 foot surface that you're painting on. And there is another mural on the other side of that triangle. To complete the mural, the artist receives a stipend of $4,500, and this fee includes materials, as well as anyone else that you bring on to assist you. It encompasses all of the supplies that you need to make this happen, except for the mural surface itself that's already there. You also are provided with parking, fair access, and food vouchers. The mural has to be painted live and completed during the state fair. So the answer to can I digitally print and put my mural up during the fair is usually no. It has to be created live in front of the fairgoers. So you also have access to the site the night before the opening day to prep murals and bring materials and supplies, and also project outlines onto your mural surface after dark if that's something that you want to do to prep for the mural painting. We also do encourage artists from outside the metro area and the greater Minnesota area to apply. Even though, you know, everything needed to be included in the $4,500, if you're an artist coming from Duluth or from further out and you potentially need a place to stay and transportation, that's something that the fair team is willing to discuss in addition to the fee if needed. And then 4 muralists this year are going to be selected for the park. So this is just a little bit more of what the structure looks like. Like I said, it's a 3-sided triangle structure. Just sharing a few images. This was actually from our first site in 2021. We actually moved the mural park later on in the next year to a different site, and we're going to talk through that site. Dudley's going to share a little bit more about that as well. So as you can see, it's definitely a public facing opportunity. You're always engaging with people. You can definitely, the artist can speak to this. You can definitely throw on headphones and get into a zone, but you're definitely always surrounded by people watching your process. So getting a little bit into the artist experience, I wanted Dudley to share about where the mural park is and sort of just like what it's like to paint at the fair.
Great. Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, so I'm going to start with this map. And I'm going to give you some context. You know, the fair is open to the public year round. with the exception of the month of August, basically, we close the grounds to prep for the fair in early August. But you could go ride your bike through the state fairgrounds right now. And the previous murals from 21, 22, and 23 are up around the grounds for summer events. You know, there was the kickoff to summer of a Memorial Weekend. There's that car show. There's lots of stuff happening. So the murals, once finished, do have a life kind of beyond the fair. And I say that in case you want to go and see what it's like. Like, you can walk over there yourself and find the grandstand and find the grassy area to the south of the grandstand, where in the inset you'll see the red circle. And there's some nice trees in that location, and you can get a feel for it. You can also pull this map up online as well from the State Fair website, although it won't have that cool red circle on it. But just to make sure, this tool is available to you after the meeting. So if you know the fair, and even if you don't, the grandstand and that center piece of the fair is really the highest intersection of traffic. People going from different gates, they all enter and sort of flow through this area. So it's very high traffic. And yet the mural park manages to be a quiet and calm and serene green space within all those sidewalks and major pathways. So something to think about, that even on the busiest day of the fair, the mural park is a place of solace and shade, mostly. Some shade can be found there. Let's see. Should I get into detail? No, yeah. Should I get into
Yeah.
parking and stuff? No.
No, I think more so
Okay.
just like
Great.
you know, a bit more about just
This
like what
stuff.
people can expect. Yeah.
So the fair has invested in some tools for logistics, and they're well represented by these three photos. You'll see the in the first image, the chain and the posts. That's just like rented stanchion, and we use that to cordon off areas that you're working in. And also, if you leave for the day, right, we want to let people know that this mural is in process, this mural is, paint might be wet, or when it's completed, we have signage for that too. So that gives you the ability to kind of have a perimeter. You'll also notice into the first and second image a small step ladder. I think we have more than one that we've acquired. And then the other thing, best represented in the first image, are the corners of those patio umbrellas. And those are the kind that tilt. And so they allow you to sort of shade yourself where you're working. The pop-up tent in the third image, I think we've learned, is really not something we recommend. It limits the fairgoer's ability to see you and your work. And it doesn't provide a great experience while you're painting. It really kind of pulls that out. Great, there's Noah working. You can see a little stanchion and ladder there. And in the third image, you can see the stanchion again. And again, that corner of a tent is a bit misleading. I don't think we're using those anymore.
No, yeah, I think really it's just like the images just are to show how much you're out there in the fair, and that, yeah, there's, besides having some shade, you're really like in the elements of, you know, the heat, the whatever happens. I don't think it rained too much for either
Not
of the years.
last year.
Yeah. But like a lot of times you might be planning to paint and then it's going to get rained out, or, you know, it's going to be a super windy. And so there's like a lot of different elements to deal with. And we share this because one of the things that we've learned over the years is just that, like, this is a really particular opportunity. And with people applying, it's sort of like you really want to either have this experience that the fair takes really good care of you, but you also have to be pretty ready to like put in the work, you know, like I'm sure Juliette and Noah can speak to this, is hot, but it's also really fun. So, you know, there's people that are going to stop you while you're trying to work and take pictures of you and things like that. So
I think this next image here on your left is a really good example of sort of a setup that worked. That umbrella was able to be moved and kind of follow the sun, provide shade. The stanchion gave Jordan a nice workspace. I think he brought that table for his paint, and was able to kind of spread out and set up his vibe and work and have that interaction, but also turn and work comfortably facing his mural. What you don't see is sort of beyond the frame, and I don't know that the actual footprint of it matters, but we do rent a storage pod. And we have that with all of this infrastructure that we're showing you, as well as the ability to store your things and padlock it. People have brought boom boxes. Yes, I believe that Wes Winship has a boom box, and like to have a little music playing. Your paints are going to go in there. If you have things like a rolling cart or any particular tools, those are great things to bring the night before, when you can drive up close to the site and drop things off, and then we'll keep them in the pod. And you can either lug them out by hand when you're done, or get them the very next morning after the fair when you can drive back in. So we have a little kind of mobile location there close to the park. We also will have access to water. There is an there's a building right nearby that has water. And so you'll have access to water, and there's a dump sink there they let us use. And there is electricity. There's an in-ground outlet, and we have extension cords. So again, for music or lighting or any tools, there are some safety concerns, right, with traffic pathways, and sometimes we need some cable runners, but we have access to power as well.
Yeah. Another thing to note is that we want the mural to be complete during the time of the fair. So the fair is 10 days. Is that right? Or it's 10 days?
12.
12 days.
It's the 12 best days of summer.
12 best days of summer. And you need to complete your mural during the time, but you don't need to paint for 12 days. You don't need to paint for the full 12 days. We do want artists to paint for at least, 4 or 5 days, so about half of it. But it's kind of up to you. We also do encourage the artists to start at the beginning of the fair and kind of work from the first day into the middle of the fair, so that the artists are there around the same time. It just makes it a lot more enjoyable to paint with other folks kind of like hanging out and painting around with you.
Do you want to
ahead.
talk about weather a little bit too, just while we're talking about the elements?
Yeah, about just being prepared to,
Yeah, so because I think it gets to thinking about your schedule a little bit. In general, the fair will never ask you to paint in any conditions that you're not comfortable in. So whatever that means to you. But we do strongly encourage, like Tricia said, not only that you start kind of front load your schedule, but you've got to learn kind of what works for you in that environment. Like some people really thrive in that level of stimulus, and some people, it's a different kind of fatigue. The fatigue of being in a visually and orally kind of noisy environment can wear you out in a really different way. And so I think giving yourself a little latitude to figure out how you tolerate the environment, and then you can adjust as you go during the week, is also, I don't know, Noah and Juliette can probably speak to that more, but we've noticed each of you is unique in terms of how you do in that environment, and you might also discover something about yourself. And so best to have some flexibility and start early and learn.
Yeah. So it's a very unique experience. And just we reiterate these things in the info session so that people really understand what it is that they're applying to. So the application process, it's due on June 17th at 8 p.m., no later than that. I would always recommend getting it in earlier. Don't wait until the very last minute. It's meant to be a pretty accessible application, so it's not super extensive. There's a couple questions you need to respond about who you are as an artist and why you would like to paint at the fair. And I will say that applications that do well are ones that really address why they want to be at the fair. We really enjoy the answers in which people are understanding what this experience will be for them and what their connection is to painting at the fair. We want to know what your concept is. It doesn't have to be fully complete, but having some thinking around what what Joyful World means to you. And then also a sketch. And so I've had a lot of questions about this because artists kind of say, well, I don't like to usually provide sketches or any work before I'm paid for that work. And so I will say that you do not have to have a completely finished sketch. Like you can have a loose sketch. It doesn't have to be a full rendering or a full mock-up. But I have also seen artists that put more into that rendering or that mock-up tend to do well in the application process because we see their full vision for their piece. You own this art. So if you don't get selected for this opportunity, it's yours. You can use it for another mural. The State Fair does not own any of your application materials. So you're kind of giving us a sketch idea that is yours. So I hope there's no intimidation around the idea of like providing a sketch as work that you're not paid for. It really is something that we're hoping to just get a better idea and looking for artists who are prepared to really make the most of this 8 foot by 8 foot composition and surface area. Examples of previously executed murals or large scale paintings. Other murals are great. Showing that you can paint larger than 4 by 4 is really important because of all of the things Dudley and I have spoken to so far and the challenges of this environment, it's not the opportunity to scale up your work for the first time. So if you've always worked at a very small scale, small paintings, 12 by 12 paintings, and you're going to take on your first 8 foot by 8 foot wall at the fair, there's just too many variables and too much pressure with like, you know, the weather, the people to do that experimentation. So definitely know that that's something that you want to have is the ability to show that you can scale your work up. Selection criteria, this is also on the site, but looking at what the values of the State Fair those are things that we're looking for. And then also, this is a family-friendly place, the fair and the Joyful World Mural Park. So really keep that in mind. I think for me, one of the largest audiences of the mural park are kids and teens. We do tend to lean towards more narrative murals because of that, something that's telling a story, something that's representing different experiences, identities, histories, and cultures in the Twin Cities tend to do well. Yeah, and so just being able to show that you have thought through how this will fit into the mural park. I definitely recommend looking at Forecast site and looking at a lot of the murals from past years, not just to say like, how can I create a mural that looks exactly like what other people have done, but to see the caliber of the work and the craftsmanship of the murals and just really think about how your work can be competitive in that way. While we look for things that look a lot like what we've seen in the past, we are also looking for those new things that we haven't seen yet. So there's kind of two ways to go with that. So
I think that the panel is advised to think about how it all lives together, right? So to not to replicate or copy previous mural styles, but to think about how your work kind of lives with them.
Yeah, thanks, Dudley. So I want to turn it over to Noah and Juliette to give their firsthand experience because they actually are probably the folks that you really want to hear from. So Juliette, I would love if you could speak a little bit to your mural concept and just like how you came about what you decided to apply with. And then also just talk about your experience and like what you got out of painting at the fair.
Yeah, so for my concept, at the time, I was thinking a lot about murmurations, which is like it's like a formation that happens when birds all fly together in like the synchronized motion. So it kind of looks like this fluid cloud, like, and it's really beautiful. And so like at the time, I was kind of thematically thinking about that. I was thinking about different ways to express abundance and joy. And I work a lot with like either botanicals or like different animals or just nature motifs. And so that's sort of the concept behind my design. Is it's like inspired by the flow and the form of a murmuration, but instead of just birds, it's all different sort of animals, mythological creatures, and I also put my cats in there too. So there's like some little fun, just sort of whimsical surprises there. I had a really positive experience painting at the fair. I think, yeah, like it was like a really great experience to kind of both like for my personal practice, kind of create a design that I felt like there was a lot of freedom in what you could create. And then to also practice kind of like the pacing of working on a timeline. And gaining the skills there, just like I think Dudley was saying, just kind of learning about like yourself too, and like your needs as an artist. And then also I really love talking to people who would just stop by. That does happen a lot. And it's a really great way just like to kind of be just very present and like in the moment. Just painting outside like in the summertime is just one of my favorite things ever too. So I had a really positive experience. You get to know all the different artists. The team that is like supporting you is great. So yeah, I'll just end it there, but I could say more later.
Yeah, thank you. What I would just say, what was one of the things that you found challenging about painting at the fair?
Yeah, so I feel like the most challenging thing is like I think many of us as artists are naturally introverts, and so just sort of pacing yourself with like I had a like I kind of try to I split my time between kind of having my headphones on and like being in the zone sometimes, but then also I tried to split that to like to also take my headphones off and be open to engaging with people. So I think just kind of pacing myself there, and also yeah, like I think like so it's like I started painting like the first day, and I think it is a really like I would highly advise to schedule the days that you plan to paint like at the first half. Give yourself breaks, but like for example, like I got sick like I think like at the beginning of the fair, and so I had to take a few days off. And so just kind of like being mindful of like your energy, not to push it too hard. I think like it's very easy to kind of like maybe go too hard the first couple days. So just trying to pace yourself and be aware of like your energy was like the challenge, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, you did really well though. I remember you were one of the first ones of the group done, I think your year. So I was like, wow, Juliette is like staying right on track.
I think Noah was one of the first also.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2022.
Noah, I would love to hear about, just your concept and how you came to what it was that you were going to apply with, and then some about your experience. And I know you had someone painting with you, sort of your assistant painter the whole time, which was something that is an option for folks to do, is have someone paint along with them. So I'd love for you to speak to that as well. But yeah, I would love to hear about how you chose to submit this work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when I was coming up with my concept for this mural, I was thinking a lot about the first mural I ever did, where there was also a good amount of foot traffic. And I think that was the first thing that got me really excited about doing murals, was just the live painting aspect and having that kind of direct response from the people that are taking in your artwork. That's something that I get a lot of excitement from. Just, seeing how people engage with it and seeing their appreciation, and, seeing that they get to see themselves reflected in your work is really gratifying to me. So I think with that in mind, I wanted to paint like an image of community that was very joyful and warm and felt like home. So I created this big house with all these people, and there's lots of hugging and love, and it's just very very sweet. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed my experience overall at the fair. I don't think I've enjoyed the state fair that much since or before then. Uh, um, I mean, but yeah, it's so fun just to be there and get to spend like several days soaking up that environment, walking around with a little badge and feeling very important, sampling all the different foods. It's a great time. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I did enlist my lovely partner to help me work on the mural, pro bono. So big thanks to them. Shout out. Uh, but yeah, yeah, super, super great experience.
Do you think so? Your mural was had a lot of detail. It has a lot of detail line work, and it's a very sort of meticulous kind of process. As some, I mean, Juliette's yours as well, but some of the artists have a looser process, and everybody has different things. Do you think that you could have finished the mural without the assistance of your partner in time, or did that cut your time, or was it more just like nice to have the company of someone with you painting?
It definitely did cut my time a bit. I'm not sure if it was completely necessary. I think I did finish with a few days to spare because I think we got the whole 12 days to work on it.
Yeah, you can
Um,
pay for the full 12 days if you want.
yeah, and I think I was there for maybe 4, not
Mhm.
more than 5 though, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I still would have been able to finish. And I think that's just because I went into it with a plan for how I was going to get it done. Even though there is a lot of detail, it is a lot of like big shapes as well. So I think I was pretty confident that it was going to be doable.
Julia, was there any time in the process that you were like worried about finishing, or do you feel like what you proposed was sort of like this is doable in this time?
Yeah, I think I tried to make a piece that was like kind of like on that edge of like felt safe enough that I can complete in less than 12 days. But then still was like challenging stylistically where I could like still be doing something new. Um
Mm.
and I think I was just worried about like yeah, like just if something were to take a little bit longer, if like my stamina like I felt personally that my stamina like I could feel it going down. Like I think the first day maybe like painted like 5 hours, and then it kind of went down to like 3 or 4, like or like I don't know, because some days it just gets really hot, and it really depends on just like the weather that day too. Also, if it rains, like that could also put stress on just getting it done in time.
Mm.
Um, Oh, and then I was just gonna say, just like a little tip. I feel like what's really helpful to do before you start painting is to kind of make a plan of what sections like you're gonna paint, or just like what stages, um, because that just like it helps you to like stay on track, but also I feel like with it being more like public and like having people stop by, it's a lot easier to kind of just have a clear goal or like each day just like to follow. So you can like still kind of be multitasking. So that was helpful.
Noah, when you applied, I'm pretty sure this was a sketch that you applied with. Did you make any changes before you actually went in and painted, or was what you submitted what you painted?
I did actually adhere pretty closely to the sketch. I don't think I made any big changes actually. I think once I started painting, I maybe like improvised some details and like added a little thing here or there.
Mm.
But I think I also made the sketch, rough enough that I would be able to improvise a little bit here and there where I felt like I needed to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that from the time that the applicants are notified to the actual fair, it's not that long, it's like less than a month and a half or so. And so I think in your application process for anyone thinking about applying, it is important to just go into it as like, I may end up painting this mural, you know, so really feeling confident about that this is what you're going to paint, and also that this is what's doable. I think that there were a couple in the past where we got the sketch, but then we asked for a couple revisions for certain things, but I think both of yours were pretty much what you proposed. So I know I've been seeing things going into the chat. You've probably been responding to those, but I did just want to open it up to questions, because that's usually where we can answer things that we didn't go into further detail about, or really get to the things that you all need to know. So I'm gonna
This is a great, can you go back to that image for a minute? Because I know there was just a question about using spray paint. So Wes's work is a mix, and there is aerosol detail in there. He did very close work. So I think, you know, something where you're spraying from a great distance is not gonna work. Just because we can't control the environment, but he was using it to do, you can see all those dots on the loon. I'm pretty sure those were all real close spray, and then he was doing some touch-ups with brushwork. So we have seen spray cans work, aerosol work.
I think Jordan last year also used spray paint, a little bit mixed in as well, and Tommy from the first year. So we have definitely had people spray painting. It's an outside space, but again, like, it might be really windy. If you're experienced with spray paint, then, and that's your paint medium, then definitely go with that. We do also have a lot of brush painters that do this because there's the time, and the scale is doable for a brush based piece. So
I had a question. I don't know if I'm remembering wrong, but I could have swore I saw something like there would be a fair orientation day on like the 20th or something that would be, I mean, is that mandatory, and what kind of things will be gone over on that day?
It's not an orientation, it's actually load in, and it will be on the 21st. The fair opens on the 22nd of August. So we do sometimes have a Zoom. Did we set a date, Tricia, for that to be on the 20th in the call? I didn't remember that.
So I'm not sure the exact date. I know that, so there's two, after artists are selected, there's two sort of prep touch points. The first one is a Zoom orientation, kind of like this, but we go more in detail about just access passes, how you get in, the scheduling.
Logistics,
Yeah, all the logistics. And then the day before the fair opens, artists load in that day and get oriented to the site. So the day before the fair opens is required. You kind of have to be, you know, ready to go on the first day of the fair. I don't know that there would be any way to work around that load in day, other than, yeah, because then you'd have artists coming in the first day of the fair, and it's really nice to have everyone come in the day before.
I mean, I can explain a little bit more about that. Like, we can get you on the grounds prior, but I doubt the storage pod would be dropped in a van. Like, that's just one of those things, you know, there's a company dropping those all over the place. So we don't know when we get our pod. We just know we can say it has to be in place by this day, right? Which is the day before the fair. So there are some challenges with getting your stuff in that really are best addressed by planning on being there the Wednesday before the fair opens, which is Wednesday, August 21st.
So someone asks, why would you, for the question, why would you like to paint at the fair? Is there a type of answer you're looking for? I think, yeah, we're looking for a compelling reason that you want to paint at the fair. And for some people, they respond about their connection to the fair. Like, their family always brought them to the fair, or, you know, things that they like about the fair, why they would be interested. For other people, they're not necessarily, you don't have to be an ultimate fair fan. I have to say that, like, I was not a huge fan of the fair until I started working at the fair as part of the mural park. And now I love the fair. Like Noah said, same, like that was the best fair experience. So that could be part of it, that you want to experience the fair in this different way, that you want to connect with the other artists, you know. It's just it's a highly competitive application. We get a lot of applicants. there's a lot of different reasons. And so we're looking for something, a story, we're looking for something interesting. We're looking for people who are really excited about the opportunity. And then obviously the art has to be something that feels like it would fit. I hope that answered.
Sorry. I have a question on materials again. Tricia, you know my work pretty well, but I do a lot of like collage based work. And so I'm just wondering if it's if it's allowed, I guess, for me to use some sort of wheat pasting alongside with painting, because I would usually paint over top of stuff, but I have a lot of photographic images as a base.
I think if you frame your application in wheat pasting, being that wheat paste and muraling is often used as a street-based form, I think that yes, it could be a competitive application. It's when people have only been doing collage work in terms of making collages for a gallery, and then they want to, sort of put it in the mural space. So you'd have to maybe show an example of where you have done it in an exterior space or done it outdoors, or speak to how you might seal it, because they do want the murals to last for a number of years. Although wheat paste also can sort of deteriorate, and that's part of the look of it. So I would just say really contextualize it in the street art medium of wheat paste as a complement to the mural rather than like collaging. Any other questions? It can also be questions for Noah or Juliette about, directly as well. I'm happy to answer questions about the application, and I think that was great about what kind of answers we're looking for.
Do you want me to go back through the chat quickly?
Yeah, I'm kind of peeking. I feel like you've been answering most of it. I guess if there's anything that Noah or Julia you have in mind in terms of tips or things that you thought of in applying. Again, these are all potential applicants or people who are thinking about applying.
I have a question, if you don't mind. It's, I was just curious if you, the artists Noah and Juliette, if you had any recommendations of for sure things to bring to the state fair that you kind of brought along that made your experience better, that maybe we wouldn't think about, or maybe you thought of later after you were already there a couple days, like I should probably, this really helped me out kind of thing.
Yeah, one thing that I got that was really helpful was I think they were like empty paint cans that were like really easy to reseal, because I was mixing colors during the fair, and then I would have like, this color that I wanted to use again the next day, and it would be like, oh, what am I gonna do with this? So some extra containers, super helpful. And of course, always good to inundate yourself with brushes and whatever other kind of materials. Maybe a yardstick if you're planning to grid your mural instead of using a projector.
Yeah, on that note, I've recently kind of been using this little mural paint hack where to store my paints. I've gotten a bunch of empty like clear ketchup bottles, and so you can just fill up all of your bottles with the paint, and there's a little cap, and it just makes it so much easier to like load up like your palette and just to store like your paints. So that was a really helpful one. And then I would also say like if you have like a folding table and like a camping chair, just so you can take breaks and to put all of your paints on the table. And I also brought a wagon too, just so I could easily just like in just one trip get all my stuff from the storage unit to the spot. And that was really helpful.
I'm also fairly new to the to murals in general. I've done a handful, but I'm curious as to like the paints that you guys use and what you really enjoy about them.
I think I just got some pretty normal like outdoor house paint. I feel like there are probably better options out there. But you know, to be honest, I was fairly new to it at the time too.
I just have a bunch of kind of like the standard mural paint brand, and like it works fine. That's what I use for my entire piece. But I know there's like other brands out there, just like uh Noah was saying, like the Bear paint brand I've heard is good. And I have friends who use that one just because it's really opaque. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the muralists at the park have used house paint, like exterior house paint. That seems to be pretty standard, or the mural brand, mural paint, or spray paint, basically. I think that's mainly what I've seen out there. Yeah. A lot of artists like working with house paint as their mural paint, so it's totally fine. Yeah, Dudley, anything else? I think we can definitely wrap up.
Did I get that right, that there'll be 6 of us on the panel, the
There are
selection
6.
panel?
Yeah, the
Right.
panel composed of Dudley and myself, and we have some artists from previous years that participate, and also some state fair team. So it's a different group or a mixed group of people, and things for myself and Dudley. I know I'm looking for feasibility and like knowing that the artist can finish in the time, that it's something that would work. I definitely have looked at mural proposals and been like, this is like really, really intricate or really crazy. Or the other side where I think they're going to paint this in a day and be done with it. It's not something that can extend over 4 or 5 days of painting. So that's something interesting to think about, is that we want artists painting for 4 or 5 days. What is the sweet spot of a design for that? You answered that about the murals being primed. They are primed. Dudley, any other advice for people applying in terms of what is looked for from the panel?
I mean, I think that we just want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Right. Like, and I think Tricia spoke to that, and I think it's okay to say I've never been to the fair and I'm super curious to be at the fair as an artist, right? Like, it's not a specific narrative that we're looking for, but I think people who just are like, oh, another summer mural opportunity, I'm going to apply for this, and don't speak to the fair are not going to be successful. It's not even that you're not going to be chosen. Like, that wouldn't be good for you either. So I think just being really aware of what it is you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. You could definitely reach out to me. My email is on the forecast page where the application is. So feel free to reach out if you have questions about the application. Definitely don't reach out to me like an hour before the application is due, but reach out further in advance. There was a quick question. Have you ever had someone who didn't finish? No, everyone has always finished. The first year, you had a little bit of possibility in that.
I didn't want to answer this one in the chat. I think it's really important I mean, the fair is open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? So like, people can choose to paint at night if the daytime sun is too exhausting, I mean, but yes, we did the first year have a lot of rain, and we were new at it too. And I think, you've heard us really stress how you need to plan on painting the first half of the fair. I mean, life is unpredictable and the fair is unpredictable, and we understand, like, if you were physically unable to complete your mural, but we try to anticipate everything we can't know now, and say that planning ahead and giving yourself plenty of time is what you should do. The murals shouldn't all be done before that busy weekend. I answered in the chat. That Saturday of Labor Day weekend is often the day we break attendance records, especially if the weather is decent. And so if you don't want to be painting with a 250,000 people, then you should be done before then. That would be my advice. And you know, the rest of Labor Day weekend is just a crapshoot depending on the weather.
It's a fun time overall.
It's a
I
fun
hope
time.
all-
It's a fun time.
But yes, good luck everyone. If you're applying, feel free to reach out. Thank you, Noah and Juliette, for sharing your experiences. It's really great to hear firsthand from you all. And Dudley, thank you always. And everyone have a good evening. Enjoy the rainstorm if you're in Minneapolis. And yeah,